Coming to you live from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to Africa Focus, where we bring you news from across the continent right here on Switch TV Kenya. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Start interacting with us on our social media platforms at Switch TV Kenya, Joel Chacha M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Chacha. Send in an SMS via 111 444 111. But first, here are stories making headlines. International pressure mounted on Ethiopia's warring parties to cease fighting and protect civilians in Tigray. Opposition leaders in Uganda speak in one voice after release of Bobi Wine, who was ordered to report back to court on December 18th. A judicial panel inquiry investigates the shooting of peaceful protesters at Lekki Tollgate in Lagos. International pressure is being mounted on Ethiopia's warring parties to cease fighting and protect civilians in Tigray, where the army says it has encircled the capital ahead of threatened bombardment at a refugee reception center in Sudan. Ethiopians queue to receive handles of food, water, and clothing.
At a sprawling refugee reception center in Sudan, Ethiopians who fled the deadly Tigray conflict queued haphazardly outside a school-turned relief facility to receive handouts of food, water and clothing. Ethiopia's northern Tigray region has been rocked by bloody fighting since November 4th, when Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed announced the launch of military operations there.
When we came here, we did not find any services. We eat inedible bread that we take from the meal. Look at this massive crowd. Some people get trampled and stand in long queues to eat. We only have one meal a day, which is either dinner, breakfast or lunch, but it's the only one we have.
The ongoing conflict is reported to have killed hundreds of people and forced thousands more to flee into neighboring Sudan. Ethiopians, frustrated by the wait and the sweltering heat, jostled to enter as a couple of Sudanese security forces standing guard tried to shoo them away with sticks. Hours later, refugees broke through the metal gates and rushed to compete for handouts.
We have no future. Our children have dropped out of school. They haven't studied in a year. We don't understand anything. It's like we are deaf. We have no future.
Neighboring Sudan, itself suffering from a severe economic crisis, was caught off guard when the conflict broke out earlier this month. It now hosts more than 36,000 Ethiopians, with many in transit camps near the border, according to Sudan's Refugee Commission.
People just want to eat. They say, we didn't die in the war. Is it possible that we die of hunger? There are many things that we don't understand.
Many at Village 8 say they had left behind modest lives as farmers with just the clothes on, their backs to escape intense bombings, shootings and knife attacks in Tigray. The UN is expecting that up to 200,000 Ethiopians could flee the unrest over the next 6 months, and its World Food Programme said it needs $24.6 million to meet their immediate needs in Sudan.
My name is Endeso Hegos. I came from Hafta Humera. We came here because there is no peace back home. So far, we haven't received any aid. We are living with hunger and fear. We also struggle to get water. There is no one to give us the water and food that we need. The government should help those of us who are suffering from hunger. We ask the government to help us with whatever they can, as we can't do anything alone.
Inside the aid facility, mothers carrying crying babies on their backs pushed their way through the crowd to find warm clothes for the children. Other Ethiopians crouched on the ground as they waited to receive assistance.
The government should help those of us who are suffering from hunger. We ask the government to help us with whatever they can, as we can't do anything alone.
3 young men fought over a pair of trousers, while a disabled man using walking sticks fell to the ground as he tried to get some clothes. Away from the mayhem of the facility, listless refugees slept on tattered rugs on the muddy ground inside small, crumbed brick shelters. There is no running water and few bathrooms, forcing most to urinate and defecate in the surrounding grassland. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Joan Kuchun.
We'll be giving you an update of the Tigray conflict right here on Africa Focus tomorrow. And moving on, and now in political matters, 5 presidential candidates jointly issued a statement raising concerns that the Electoral Commission has been overrun by security agencies and is no longer in charge of the elections in Uganda. This comes as Ugandan security forces violently clash with supporters of opposition leader Bobi Wine as calls mount for calm ahead of the January 14th elections.
16 people have been killed in 2 days of violent clashes between Uganda security forces and supporters of detained opposition leader Bobi Wine as tensions flared 2 months before a presidential election. Ugandan security forces fired tear gas and rubber bullets at angry protesters who set fires, barricaded roads and looted stores in the capital Kampala as calls mounted for calm ahead of the January 14th elections. The pop star turned presidential candidate Bobi Wine, whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, is in detention for allegedly violating coronavirus measures at his rallies over the large crowds attending. About 350 people have been arrested for participating in violent acts, including looting, destruction of property, traffic disruption, theft and robberies during the riots. Wine has been long a thorn in Museveni's side, attracting a widespread following through catchy pop songs about social injustice and corruption. Many young Ugandans see him as their champion in a country marred in poverty and youth unemployment. Wine has been repeatedly arrested, most recently in 3rd November after he filed his candidacy for the elections. His concerts are routinely banned and his public rallies broken up with tear gas. 2 other presidential candidates, Henry Tumukunde and Gregory Mugisha Muntu, have called off their campaigns until Uganda's electoral body takes action over what they call police brutality against opposition candidates. Museveni made no immediate comment on the protests and held a rally in the northeastern town of Karamoja.
As Burkina Faso continues to grapple with a growing jihadist insurgency after hundreds of thousands of voters were unable to cast ballots in Sunday's general election due to security threats, with less than 5% of the votes counted. After Burkina Faso's election, incumbent President Roch Kabore was leading the race by Tuesday.
Roch Kabore rejected opposition accusations of fraud at the ballot box after his campaign ran alongside continued bloodshed and the fear of jihadist attack on voting day was high. Jihadist-related violence has forced 1 million people from their homes in the last 2 years and at least 1,200 have been killed since 2015.
We are waiting for the results, but it looks like President Roch is in the lead and will win in the first round. That's really good for peace. If we have to start the campaign again, it will cause us a lot of problems. That's my vision of things.
Most of the 12 opposition candidates running against Kabore have criticized the incumbent's failure to stem the bloodshed. But no votes were cast in the 1/5 of the country, where large swaths of territory remain outside the state's control and jihadist strikes almost daily.
Well, there will be no challenges because the Bakanabis are very tired. Yes, very tired. Because of insecurities, there have been deaths. We have really suffered a lot. So if the results come out, I hope they will accept it.
The Electoral Commission has reported a number of polling stations for the presidential votes closed down after threats were made against them. Commission President Newton Ahmed Bari told reporters that about 6.5 million voters had not cast their ballots due to security threats.
Several polling stations were closed because of insecurity, but overall, it went well.
What I'm really looking forward to is seeing my president elected, Mr. Roch Mark Christian Kabore.
Almost all of Kabore's challenges have called for dialogue with the extremists to be explored, a suggestion Kabore has emphatically rejected. Ivy Kavai for Switch TV.
Meanwhile, security forces evacuate people affected by Cyclone Gary, which hit Somalia's Puntland region on Sunday, flooding homes and causing considerable damage. Heavy rains and strong winds triggered flash floods along coastal and inland areas, according to the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs.
Flooded homes and roads is the new face that welcomes you to Somalia's Puntland region, hit by Cyclone Gati. Residents in coastal Somalia may have been caught off guard by the ferocity of the storm, unmatched by any other system in Somalia's history. Winds of 62 to 69 miles per hour were predicted in a joint forecast issued by Somali Water and Land Information Management and the United Nations.
The
Bosaso district is facing more problems following heavy rains. Most of the people affected are displaced people and local residents of Bosaso. The cyclone left 6,000 families homeless and without food. The homes of these families were flooded, and the other houses were destroyed by heavy floods.
8 deaths are so far being blamed on the tropical cyclone Gati, the first hurricane-strength system to hit Somalia in recorded history. Gati made landfall about 6 p.m. Sunday local time over the city of Hafun with sustained winds of 105 miles per hour, the equivalent of a category of 2 hurricanes. Several buildings were destroyed in Hafun, which is in the state of Puntland in eastern Somalia on the Horn of Africa. Hadia Mosiwa for Switch TV.
Away from that, and now in the corridors of justice, a Lagos judicial panel inquiry has investigated the shooting of peaceful protesters at Lekki Tollgate in Lagos, with lawyers for both the Nigerian army and the protesters answering questions. The government has denied any responsibility and labeled reports that soldiers killed 12 people as fake news. The police have said 22 officers had been killed in protest-linked unrest last month.
Lekki Concession Company case, we're at a point where we were viewing the footage presented by them in evidence. We're of the view that the footage or areas of the footage that will be played today would be of interest to the Nigerian army.
By the time they fired a few shots into the air, the hoodlums hightailed it.
They hightailed it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Our mission was not, remember, to go and clear the protest. We were on our way for our own operations.
If I tell you that we have our own pictures showing gun marks, including the thing that we were using to play, those loudspeaker and all that. Were you surprised?
We are not here for opinion evidence, my lord. That is what is asking to give. Opinion evidence where that is not even, that the real evidence is not before my lord.
In later days, recently, the cable news network, CNN, has carried the Lekki incident.
What was DW?
Pardon?
DW News.
Dozens of demonstrators gathered on Independence Square in Angola's capital, Luanda, to protest against government corruption and police violence. A number of people were arrested and some were injured during the demonstrations, which had been banned by the authorities. Last month, dozens of people were arrested during a similar protest. Angola is one of Africa's biggest oil exporters, but most of its people live in poverty.
The police are not the MPLA. We don't want to be the MPLA.
We are fighting against this, and we are asking on behalf of Angolan society that the fight is taken seriously and not be selective in the way that it has been. We have over 300 people here demonstrating. That means the call has been made well and the message has reached everyone.
The demonstrations will not stop in Luanda. That is to say that on December 10th, there will be another, and we invite all those people who are at home, young scientists, young people who know that the country is not in good shape, to show up on December 10th.
Time to take a breather, but keep the conversation going on our social media platforms at Switch TV Kenya, at Joel Chacha M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Chacha. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. South Africa police fired tear gas at opposition activists protesting against alleged racism at a Cape Town school. Welcome back to Africa Focus. My name is Joel Chacha and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Moving on, South African police fired tear gas and water cannons at economic freedom fighter supporters protesting against alleged racism at Brackenfell, a Cape Town school where whites-only year-end dance party was allegedly held earlier in October this year. Take a look.
South Africa police fired tear gas at opposition activists protesting against alleged racism at Cape Town school, where a whites-only year-end dance party was allegedly organized last month. Anti-riot police aimed tear gas and water cannon towards hundreds of members of the radical leftist Economic Freedom Fighters party gathered near the school. The protesters dispersed and regrouped a few blocks away. Police later told the protest organizers that only 100 people were allowed to march to the school. The protests were the latest of a string of demonstrations against alleged racism at Brackenfell High School following the dance party held sometime later in October. Few days after the party, Economic Freedom Fighters EFF members tried marching to the school but were blocked by some of the students' parents, resulting in fistfights.
Now, 10 years ago, on January 14, 2011, Abdenasher Awini defied the curfew imposed by the authorities and walked down Bugania Avenue shouting Ben Ali has fled, who is one of his friends. And one of his friends actually filmed the video and it went viral on social media. Many Tunisians found out about the escape of ousted dictator through it. 10 years later, the Tunisian lawyer and human rights activist recounts his historical moment and his disappointment after the revolution.
There was someone who came down from the second floor following me and filming me. It was Ahmed, a friend who also happened to be there. He came down and continued filming. The video was shared, and after 2 days it was picked up by the media and it was played over and over again when we were talking about the Tunisian revolution. Under the rule of Ben Ali, injustice was at a very high level, and for a committed person like me who is convinced by this fight, who had put his career at stake in this fight, obviously we had to celebrate when at some point we won the fight. And I had gone out to celebrate as they had done the day before in a staged play. My commitment is no longer built on dreams. It is now built on common sense given the situation, the economic degradation in the country and everything that happened afterwards, the theft of the revolution, how that dream was stolen and how they wanted to turn the revolution into a civil war with the assassination and what happened in Libya, Syria, Yemen and Egypt. Today, elected politicians must give hope to Tunisians, rebuild the sentimental link between the people and the country, so that Tunisians continue to love their country and return to their country to rebuild it. This country can give a lot to Tunisians and to the world.
Still a focus on the history. The Arab Spring Uprising started on December 17, 2010, where a young street vendor, goaded by years of police harassment, doused himself with fuel in front of the governor's office in the central Tunisian town of Sidi Bouzid and set himself on fire. Bouzizi died of his wounds on January 4th during the protest movement against President Zain El Abdelaziz Ben Ali, who had been in power for 23 years, had spread to the entire country. 10 days later, Ben Ali was forced to flee to Saudi Arabia.
We want Ben Ali to leave.
It's unacceptable.
We had enough of him and his rubbish. We want him out, out, out. And the prisoners of conscience, they are in that place behind you. We want them freed. They are being tortured. Why? Because they spoke out.
Now he needs to quit. Not in 3 years. In 3 years he'll get his police, militia. He'll do it all. Yesterday he hadn't finished his speech and everyone was in the street. Who was in the street? His militia. The killer is Ben Ali. The killer is the RCD. We refuse the RCD. We refuse Ben Ali. 23 years. We are tired. Out, RCD. Out, out.
Elsewhere in Cairo, Ahmed Gaddafi al-Dam reminiscence about the oust of his cousin Muammar Gaddafi. The 68-year-old maintains that the Arab Spring was a hoax engineered to cause instability in the region. Gaddafi's bloody demise in Agatha in October 2011 heralded the oil-rich North African country descent into chaos as militias battled for control.
What has been happening during the last 10 years, from destruction, displacement, killing, squandering of wealth, instability, terrorism and illegal migration, gives a clear answer that what happened was not a revolution nor a spring. There was no revolution, but a NATO attack on Libya to kill Muammar Gaddafi for well-known reasons, among which is his role in Africa. This unjustified aggression against Libya led to the catastrophe. Through what the US administration revealed, it was confirmed in emails that Hillary Clinton knew about the destruction of the entire region and the conspiracy against Egypt, Libya and Syria. Those are official documents. I'm surprised that it only took 2 weeks for the Security Council to destroy one of the safest countries in North Africa, while it was unable for 9 years to take a decision that protects the Libyans, who are dying on a daily basis, are in prison or exiled. Our country is run by lawless gangs and terrorist groups. This is an accusation against the Security Council. We call on the French president to open an investigation into Sarkozy's crime in Libya, and not to investigate him accepting money from Libya. This is not a crime.
On to other news, a few thousand anti-government protesters have defied an indefinite curfew at Lekki Tollgate in Lagos as ordered by the state governor to curb the demonstrations which went into effect at 4 p.m. local time. As the lockdown went into force in Africa's largest city at 4 p.m, hundreds of defiant protesters sang the national anthem as they pledged to remain out on the streets. Take a look.
The government initially said it would impose a 24-hour curfew in Lagos. By early evening, silence fell on large parts of the usually bustling city. Shops were closed and cars had gone. Protests that began 12 days ago over abuses by the police Lord's Special Anti-Robbery Squad have spiraled dramatically, with violence being reported in several cities.
We're here because we believe in what we're fighting for. We're firm to it. And if you listen to our national anthem and our national pledge, we are here to defend our unity.
Lagos State Governor Babajide Swano ordered the shutdown after he said the protest had degenerated into a monster that is threatening the well-being of our society. The force will henceforth exercise the full powers of the law to prevent any further attempt on lives and property of citizens.
For our freedom, we are fighting for the truth. We are fighting for the labor of our heroes past. We don't want it to be in vain. That's why we are here. We are not rioting. We are not stealing. That's why we are not afraid. You cannot fight a sleeping man because it's peaceful. So that's what we are doing here. But
The wave of protest in Nigeria has rattled the authorities as the biggest show of people power in years has turned into demands from youths for sweeping changes. The government announced the scrapping of SARS unit and a raft of reforms over a week ago, but the bid to placate the protesters has failed. Officials has called for the demonstrations to be suspended to give authorities time to make good on its pledges.
Numbers when they are not. Nigerian youths are passionate and purpose-driven youths. We are not cowards. That's why we are here. Yes.
Tensions were high after police reported that 3 people had been killed in clashes in the city, and violence spread as well to the largest northern city of Kano as hundreds of people went on a rampage on Tuesday, burning vehicles and looting businesses.
Of some people, I have children. I'm looking forward to carry my great-grandchildren because my grandmother did, my mother did. If I'm a coward, I wonder what my children will look like. I would prefer to die well for my children to have a better tomorrow. The truth is it.
Some 18 people have died in the demonstrations as clashes have been reported between protesters and assailants wearing civilian clothes. Rights groups and protesters have accused thugs and sponsored hoodlums of attacking the peaceful demonstrations and seeking to discredit the movement. Lagos, a city of 20 million, has been paralyzed as crowds have blocked key roads and access to the international airport.
And that's all on Africa Focus today. But keep the conversation going on our social media platforms at Switch TV Kenya, Joel Chacha M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Chacha. Keep sending in your SMS via 111 444 111. And of course, my director has been Miriam and producer Nyakundi Kelvin. My name is Joel Chacha and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Until next time, do have yourself a great day.